Good morning, nuts and bolts listener, and welcome to this week's live stream, which is about how to measure goal progress. We have been, for the last 4 weeks, been talking about goals from various angles, and today we want to conclude this episode of goals with thinking about how can we measure them. Because if you can't measure, how do you know that there is progress? And how would you even bother putting effort in if you cannot measure progress? So when it comes to goals and measuring progress, if it's tangible goals, it's always easy to measure them. So tangible would be time, percentage, values. So anything where you can really put a figure towards it and then start tracking it on a continuous basis. Am I moving forward to it or not? People would often use items like time, their weight, speed, percentages. So that all makes it easier to determine, are we moving forward in this goal or not? And checking in regularly helps you then to course correct it. Now, what about these goals that are perhaps not so tangibly easy to measure, which would fall into the category of self-development goals? How would you measure something like confidence, developing confidence, or becoming more assertive? How would you measure progress on that? That's not always that easy, and that's really where I want to go with today's conversation and focus on it. To start with, I think always look at the flip side and go, let's take confidence as an example. What is the lack of confidence hindering me from doing? Perhaps you're not participating in something, you're not contributing, you're not speaking up, you're not using your voice. At the end of the day, either of them will hinder you from really being your authentic self and the best version of yourself. So once you've made a list or got an idea of what is confidence hindering you from, or the lack of confidence hindering you from doing, you can start reverse engineering it and saying, so if I do have it, what is it going to enable me to do? And the outcome will be something that you might be participating in something, you volunteer in something, you raise your hand to step up into a certain role. So you would really be aware of that. But it goes further than that. It also starts going into how will you feel differently if you actually have confidence? How will you in your body feel differently? How will you look differently? How will your body language be differently? So it's really being very clear, and what that process does, it ties back to what we discussed in the previous live stream, is that you start to visualize yourself in that persona of having confidence. So you start growing into it, and that's the measurement. So you need to be clear of how you will be different if you do have it. And if you're not able to see that, then that becomes a process or a development process. And two ways to always check in if you're progressing or measuring your progress is twofold. The one is to really ask for feedback. So asking people around you really for feedback. Do you feel I have improved here? Or give me feedback because I'm working on this, and tell me if there is a shift in it. So that's one way of actively seeking feedback. Very often people might be working on a personal development skill, be it, as I say, assertiveness, confidence, whatever works for them. And over months, because it is a habit you're changing over months or instilling over months, they get feedback from their colleagues, their peers, their direct support, their line manager, and they often get feedback that, you know what, I've noticed an improvement in this. So they've worked on it perhaps behind the scenes, and then they get that positive affirmation that something has changed. Often that feedback comes over a period of 3 months and onwards, because you need to integrate what you are shifting towards. So it's something that you develop into. So feedback is really critical as a measurement on how you are progressing towards your goals. Being mindful that we're really focusing here on personal development goals, not the tangible goals, because those are easy to measure, slotting things into a matrix, a spreadsheet, using your digital devices, your Fitbits, all those things. So we're really here talking about measuring personal development goals. So one is feedback. The second one to measure is perhaps a bit more internal for you, and that is your mindset. You need to start measuring your mindset when it comes to goals and achieving your goals. What is my mindset about this goal? And here I want to explore the concept from Carol Dweck, who you may or may not have heard about, but she really is a big advocate of the concept called the growth mindset and a fixed mindset. The key difference between the two mindsets is that in a fixed mindset, you have the internal belief system that you do not have the necessary talent, skills, or resources to actually achieve a certain goal. So that's the one assumption you're making, or the belief system. And the second one is that you are often doing something for perhaps acknowledgement or validation from the external environment, so society, friends, networks, or whatever. And if you do not achieve something, you see that as a failure and you do not attempt it again. So that's a very fixed mindset where you just fixed or stuck into this process. And then we have on the opposite a growth mindset. And it's exactly as the word says, we grow into the goal. So what happens with a growth mindset, we are interested in the progress that we are making. So like, what is the process that's happening? We are not so focused on the final outcome. And very often when it comes to goals, it's not always there's a final outcome, because goals very often evolve as we evolve and mature. And when it comes to a growth mindset, it's a lot about experimenting and then sitting back and taking stock of, did this work for me? And if yes, what? And if no, what can I tweak? So it's this continuous reflective process of work in process, and it's taking you and looking at your goals and yourself as this unique, beautiful masterpiece that is in creation. And if you would approach that with your confidence area, you would start experimenting with certain things. So you would maybe participate in something a little bit more, or be maybe quite bold and raise your hand and go, all right, I want to volunteer for this, or I want to lead this, knowing that it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. And then sitting back and thinking, all right, how did that go? Didn't perhaps land as well as I thought. What can I do differently? Those kind of things. So you're continuously looking at it. And that's a key component on measuring progress in goals when it comes to personal development, is having a growth mindset of continuously self-reflecting, introspecting, and getting feedback, and always having this attitude or this mantra of in your mind of not yet. I haven't achieved it yet, but I am on my way of getting there. And just that sentence of not yet, which is Carol Dweck's favorite sentence, which I think is invigorating, just brings in that level of motivation, that self-motivation, that self-belief, that really that inner strength of knowing I have control and I'm working on this. And it also brings in a lot of self-compassion and self-love to know that this is going to take some time, and you're going on a journey, and it's a process, and progress is in bite sizes. And as we all know, progress is not linear. We never evolve or grow in a goal or achieve something in a straight line. We go a few circles up and then we circle down again. But it's the continuous movement and the evolution of that helps you continuously grow. And the reason why that kind of development is not a linear process is because as we are developing, we are encountering different challenges, which always test us a little bit on, have you actually learned this, or do you need to go back? And if so, it's a different situation. So hence a growth mindset is really very powerful to embrace. And if you're looking at your goals in holistically, like your whole life, which is often referred to as the wheel of life, if you look at your entire life, it's always interesting to go and look at all the different areas of your life and ask yourself, in each of them, where do I have a fixed mindset and where do I have a growth mindset? Where am I using language of, I can't, this is not possible, it's just not meant to be? Those are all fixed mindsets, appearances. And then in others, you feel quite hopeful, possible, you see the opportunity. And that's always interesting to observe, because it raises the question of why? Why am I not able to move forward in this? So you might have decided to, I don't know, let's use another example of you might have decided to reduce your time on how much time you spend on, I don't know, emails, for example. You want to reduce the time you spend on emails. You might know how much time you spent on it in a day or in a week, and hypothetically, you decide you want to reduce it by, let's just say, 20%. But if you really think about it, you have that set as a goal. It's easy to measure, to actually keep track of your time and notice week on week, day on day, month by month, am I actually reducing it? But the key component is, what's your mindset about it? Do you think it's actually doable, or do you actually think, it's wishful thinking, it's actually not possible, I can't do this? Hence, you've actually got a goal with a fixed mindset, and we need to swap that with a goal with a growth mindset. Thinking, how can I do this? What's possible? What can I experiment with? And keep on going back with it. And that's your measurement, actually, on where is my mindset, which is so critical here. It's invaluable, more than the tangible ones. And that's really key when measuring goals, and also embracing that it's not a linear process. So that's really, really key. Measuring progress of goals is also sometimes sitting back and thinking, is this a realistic time frame? And very often we are sold goals that are perhaps not that realistic, because to achieve goals require a change in habits, in behaviors, and naturally a mindset. And as an adult, that takes even longer. So with developing new goals, we have to create new wiring of our neurons in our brain. And for us, that is, as an adult, again, quite energetically conscious, exhausting, because you have to consciously focus on it. Because you need to, like they say, what fires together wires together. You have to consciously get these two neurons to connect with each other and do that permanently in the sense of repetition, so that they really develop this very strong new pathway amongst each other, and they stop to remember the old pathway that you have created or done for so many months, years, or whatever. So that takes quite a bit of process. Hence, measuring where you are, sitting back and just reassessing where am I going, and consciously all the time doing it is key. And it's about small steps that is absolutely critical here. And I know they say, you can change a habit within 21 days. There is some truth in that. So you can break a habit within 21 days. And thereafter, it is about developing a new habit. And developing a new habit until it becomes deeply instilled of you and you don't have to consciously, actively think about it anymore, is a 9 to 12 months process, where every day, even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we do something that it becomes a natural process for us, and we forget about that. Hence, if we are wanting to measure goal processes and goal achievement, it's being very realistic that we're not going to lose 10 kilograms in 2 weeks. I mean, as much as we'd like to, and perhaps as much as we are given the illusion or the dream, it's not possible. And if it is, it's not sustainable. And we are looking here about goals that are actually sustainable. So really focus about the measurement. And if you don't have measurements, like if you don't know what will be different for you, if you have assertiveness or confidence, then that becomes a key discussion point for you first to ponder on, or again, seek professional conversations, because if you are not sure what you're going to measure, you're going to meander off into various directions, and that's going to demotivate you, and you're just going to give up very quickly. So just reiterating, it's really being clear about how will that feel like for me if I actually have it? What will be different? How will I benefit? How will I know I have achieved it? And what is the cost for me personally for not having this? So that is really key. You can also go and look, you can also look at it from the way of who really has this? Who do you admire? Who demonstrates or oozes full of confidence, but in a nice way, not in an egocentric way that it's overconfident, which is perhaps very off-putting for others. But who has that level of confidence that you aspire to? And watch them, observe them. What do they do? How do they behave? How do they show up? Because you have a role model. You've got an example of somebody who has it, and then trying to take that and integrate it with, what could I do here? What could I work with here? So use different ways of finding your measurements when it comes to personal development. And then check in with yourself weekly, 2-weekly, very honest, very realistic, and saying, how actually have I stacked up against this? And if it didn't work, Don't toss it out of the window and give up and say, oh, just can't do this. Really become self-reflective and think, okay, what didn't work here? Was it the situation? Was it something I did? How could I do it differently? So again, sit back and use everything that you are learning as an opportunity to relearn, reprocess, redo, and be curious. Be curious what's in it that's hindering you from actually not moving forward. So, nuts and bolts listener, today we spoke about how to measure progress in your goals, specifically self-development goals. And the key main things was to get feedback either actively or get it from people at a later stage where they've noticed the change, and really be very clear on how you are going to measure it. So you need to know what that looks and feels like for you. And thirdly, remember your mindset. Develop and instill a growth mindset of not yet, it's work in progress, my masterpiece is still in progress. On that note, have an amazing Friday, and we will tune in next week where we will start the new series, which is all going to be about the topic of coaching. Professional leadership coaching will be our topic for the month of March. Have an amazing Friday. Look after yourself, stay healthy, and take care. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.